Welcome to the ITFreeTraining video on MBR and GPT partition tables. In this video, I will go through how to configure MBR and GPT partition tables on Windows 8 and Windows Server 2012, both at the command line and also using the graphics interface. So, without further ado, I will change to my Windows 8 computer. To access disk management, I will first open Windows Explorer from the Quick Launch bar. Once open, I will right-click on Computer and select the option Manage. This will open Computer Management. Disk Management can be found in Computer Management under Storage. In this computer, I have added a brand new hard disk that has not been formatted as yet. If I cursor over it, notice that there is a down arrow indicating that the hard disk is currently offline. Notice under this, it is also indicated that the hard disk has not yet been initialized. Initializing the hard disk adds a signature to the hard disk. This signature allows Windows to identify the hard disk even if the hard disk is moved to a different controller or moved to a different computer. Before I can use the hard disk, I need to initialize it. To do this, right-click the disk and select Initialize Disk. Initialized disk will create a partition table on the hard disk, which will define how data on the hard disk can be stored. The next step is to decide which partition table you want to use. You can see that you have the options for MBR Master Boot Record and GPT GUID Partition Table. In this case, I will leave it on the default option MBR and press OK. In the real world, if your hard disk is smaller than 2 terabytes, then MBR should meet all your needs. You can see that Disk 1's status has now changed to Online. If you decide you want to use GPT later on, notice that when I right-click the disk, I have the option Convert to GPT Disk. The only reason this option is available is because there is no volume defined on the hard disk. To demonstrate this better, I will create a volume on the hard disk by right-clicking the hard disk and selecting the option New Simple Volume. It does not matter which options I choose in the New Simple Volume wizard, so I will choose all the default options for the wizard and next my way to the end. Notice that once the volume is created, if I right-click the hard disk, the option Convert to GPT Disk is now grayed out. If you want to convert the partition table to GPT, you need to first delete all the partitions on the hard disk. Notice that when I delete the volume, the option to convert it to GPT disk is now available. If I select this option, nothing appears to happen. However, if I right-click the disk again, notice that the option has changed to Convert to MBR disk. This gives you an indication of which partition table is in use. If I select the option Properties, then select the tab Volume, notice that under Partition Style, the partition type is shown as GUID Partition Table. I will now change to my Windows Server 2012 and have a look at some of the differences in interface compared with Windows 8. To access disk management on Windows Server 2012, I will first open Server Manager, and from Server Manager select the Tools menu, and from that select the option Computer Management. Notice that I have a hard disk that has not been initialized. When I move the mouse over this hard disk, notice that it states that the disk is offline because of policy set by an administrator. In order to use this hard disk, the administrator needs to right-click and select Online. Having to manually online new hard disks is a policy configured by default in Windows Server 2012 to prevent a hard disk from a SAN accidentally being added and used by the server. Since a SAN could share storage between many different servers, potentially 2 servers could attempt to write to the same drive at the same time. For this reason, Windows Server 2012 requires an administrator to physically go into disk management and select the Online option for any new storage added to the server. This helps prevent storage being used on multiple servers by accident. To change this policy, this needs to be done from a command line utility called diskpart. To access it, I will close these windows and press the Windows key followed by the X key to open the Quick Launch menu and select Command Prompt. Once the command prompt opens, I will enter in diskpart. Diskpart is a utility included in Windows and allows you to perform the same functions you can in disk management, plus some additional functions. To see the SAN policy, which is currently configured, I will enter in SAN. You can see that policy is currently configured to offline shared. Any new disks that are added to the system will automatically be placed in an offline state. To change this, I need to enter in the command SAN policy equals online all. This will change the default setting so that any new disks added to the system will automatically be brought online. If you do enable this setting, be careful if you introduce any foreign disks into the system. A new disk could cause issues with the other drives in the system. One site I worked on changed a server to boot from the SAN. It previously booted off of local hard disks which were still in the system. During a power outage, all the servers and the SAN were switched off. When they started up, the servers started up faster than the SAN. Since the SAN was not available, you guessed it, the server failed the SAN boot and then booted off the local hard disks containing the operating system from 2 months ago. Luckily, the problem was picked up quickly and the server reconfigured to boot only off the SAN and not the local drives. But you get the idea of how much potential damage any changes in the disks in a server could have. Now that it is complete, I will press Windows X again, and this time select the option for Run. This time I will run disk management by typing diskmanagement.msc. Running disk management like this allows disk management to utilize more of the screen than if accessed through computer management. Notice that the drive is still offline. Since I have just changed the policy change will only affect new drives that are added to the system, not drives that are already present in the system. If I right-click the drive, I can select the Online option, and then I can right-click the drive and select Initialize the drive, just like I could in Windows 8. Just like Windows 8, you have the option of MBR or GPT. I will leave it on the default of MBR and press OK. Notice that once the disk has been initialized, if I right-click the drive, I can convert it to GPT. So, besides having the extra SAN policy for Windows Server 2012, the interface looks the same as it did in Windows 8. All the functions that I just performed can also be run from the command line diskpart utility. If I go back to the command prompt, which is still running diskpart, I will now go through the process I just went through with disk management with diskpart. To find out which disks are installed on this system, I will run the command list disk. This will show any disks that are currently installed on this server. Before I can perform any actions on any of the disks, I need to select one of them. This is done with the select disk command, followed by the number of the disk. In this case, I will select disk 1. Once the disk is selected, a number of different commands can be run. This includes creating partitions. In this case, I will run the command convert GPT. This will change the partition table to the GPT partition table, just like I did with the disk management interface. Also, just like the disk management tool, I can change the partition table back to MBR using the command convert MBR. You will notice that diskpart did not give any warning message or confirmation messages before it executed the command. For this reason, you should always be careful with diskpart, as it is easy to erase the wrong disk by mistake. If you are not sure which disk you are currently working on, you should run the command list disk again, and you will notice that there is an asterisk next to the disk that is currently selected. The last command that I will look at is clean. the clean command will remove all configuration data from the hard disk and thus effectively erase the disk. To demonstrate this better, I will once again run disk management using the run command like I did before. Notice this time, disk management has detected the disk and asked how you would like it partitioned. If you had recently installed a brand new disk that had never been used before, you would get this screen. So effectively, the clean command has removed everything from the hard disk, including the signature that Windows adds to identify the hard disk. As far as Windows is concerned, this is a brand new disk that has never been used before. Well, that covers it for MBR and GPT. I hope you found this video from ITFreeTraining useful. Remember, this is only one of the free videos available from ITFreeTraining. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time.